Hello my friends and welcome back. Monday edition, new day, new week, new opportunity to read the book 8 Missions in Ukraine, my friends. I've been talking about Ukraine for 4 years and covering this war, and if you ever wondered any kind of a backstory I might have, it's all in this book, written out exactly for you. I mean, who else is going to read it? You. Made for you. Go and get it, link is in the description below. We begin today with Russian economy. I haven't begun a video with this topic for a year and a half, I think. And we begin immediately with United States seizing an oil tanker. Now this specific oil tanker was carrying actually Venezuelan oil, but it was part of Russia's shadow fleet. Of course, Russia is supporting Venezuela and Iran with their own shadow fleet to carry their sanctioned oil. The US Department of Defense reports the seizure of another tanker belonging to Russia's shadow fleet, the Veronica III in the Indian Ocean. By the way, this tanker was chased by the US Navy over a month. It started at the coast of Venezuela and it made it to the Indian Ocean in over a month, and then the US Navy seized it. And we have a full video about it. Of course, I love these videos because it's United States Navy and Army doing things as they should be done. No failures, just pure execution. Check it out. Walking into the chopper lifting off, finding the tanker. And this is the tanker, it's shadowed by a US Navy ship. And of course the crew of the tanker has already been lined up, because this is what commands the chopper gave to the tanker. And what can they do? Fight back against the most trained army in the world? No, hell no. So yeah, it has been seized. On the Trump administration, what they do is they actually, commandeer or they take the oil. They take the oil and sell it, and the proceeds will go to the United States. That's how it's done. Continuing on the Russian economy, let's take as an example Russia's Rolls-Royce. It's Aurus. It's a luxury car brand in Russia that, you know, Putin drives it, some other Duma deputies drive it. It is a Rolls-Royce copycat. It was supposed to be better than the Rolls-Royce, but now it has gone bankrupt. The assembly line at the plant in Yelabuga has stopped. Officially it's called an inventory check. Russians always have these fancy names for whatever goes wrong. For example, retreat is called a reverse advance. Bankruptcy is called an inventory check. And laying off workers is called sending them to rest or sending them to a forced pause. In reality, according to media reports, the car simply stopped selling. The situation is straightforward. Officials and state companies already bought theirs, while ordinary buyers can't afford the car priced at 50 to 70 million rubles. Export hopes have also faded. Interest abroad is nearly non-existent. Even Kim Jong-un, after taking a spin in the gifted Aurus, reportedly went back to his Mercedes Maybach. Yeah, Kim Jong-un has several Mercedes Maybachs in North Korea. He loves them, drives them around, and he has an opportunity to show what it's all about and drive a Russian brand. He has an Aurus, but he doesn't like it. He still drives a Maybach. Which is funny because the Russians also prefer Mercedes to any kind of Russian cars. Still to this day. And what they did in this specific plant, the Aurus plant in Yelabuga, has been shut down and workers have been sent on downtime. Yeah, they never have bankruptcy in Russia. They send workers in downtime. Sounds a lot better, right? But don't get yourself to be fooled, it's bankruptcy. This car brand ceases to exist. Continuing on the Russian economy, let's take the Russian railways. Russian railways is one conglomeration, one company. It is mostly state-owned, and it has the biggest one-company debt in Russia out of any companies. We're talking about 4 trillion rubles. One company debt, 4 trillion rubles. Correct me here if I'm wrong, I try to count the zeros and everything. I think it makes up to $52 billion, which makes it one of the biggest debts in any company of the world, the entire world. I know some companies have hundreds of billions of debts, but it's very rare. $52 billion in debt definitely is up there with the top heaviest owing companies in the world. And this is Russian Railways loading per month 2011 to 2025, and if you pause and look at the numbers, well, we are back to 2011 numbers, which is really, really bad for Russia. The railway owes a lot of money, and they are actually falling in loading capacity, falling in revenues they're making, falling in operational capacity, and there's a massive shortage of railway workers and locomotives, which they cannot produce domestically in Russia. Some parts of it, at least. So yeah, another illustration of how Russian economy, the whole country, because this company is mostly state-owned, is doing horribly. Soon Russian railways will send their workers on downtime, if you know what I mean. Amongst all of this chaos I just described, the Russian central bank decided to lower the key interest rate. Now you might go thinking, why they did this? Is there any kind of strategy? No, my friends, you go crazy about looking for reasons in Russia, how they behave. They lowered it to 15.5%. And it's gonna mean catastrophe. The inflation was running to about 7 to 8% with the interest of 20%. Now, such a high interest rate did not manage to get the inflation down. You know what will happen? The economy is overheated already. What will happen if you lower the interest rate to 15.5? The inflation will rise. That's how it is. So 15.5%. I'm guessing the inflation goes over 10%. This is a catastrophe brewing for the Russian economy and for the ruble. We will see that in 2026. Get your popcorn. And to top it all off, the last news of the Russian economy, they are forced to use the dollar again. Since I talked about the railways, that export is falling significantly. Oil exports, seaborne oil exports falling significantly. No Europe as a gas buyer anymore, so they need to export their stuff. But they're running into the wall of sanctions, even with China and with India. It's difficult to export if you can only accept rubles, because you have nothing to do with the rupees of India and yuan of China. So, this information comes from one of the deputies of the Duma, so it's legit. In the State Duma, they announced the forced return to trading in dollars. Oh, United States, so bad, so evil, but we love the dollar since it's so stable. The current situation is forcing Russia to agree to settlements in dollars, said Nikolai Arefiev, the first deputy chairman of the State Duma's Committee of Economic Policy, commenting on Bloomberg's information that Russian authorities are asking the US to return Russia to dollar settlements. What? I quote now. I read this information today. Indeed, such a memorandum is being prepared, that settlements will be carried out in dollars. The issue is quite complicated. We switch the settlements in rubles, and it turns out that we sell, for example, oil or gas abroad and receive rubles, with which we can't buy anything in the world. You know why? Because no country, not China, not India, wants rubles. Nobody wants rubles because there's nothing to do with them. Absolutely nothing. Ruble is an isolated currency and you cannot really trade with it due to sanctions on any market. So there's nothing to do. It's a dead currency. So you gotta use dollars, but Russia using dollars opens them up to manipulations by the United States if they want to do that. Any country using dollars accepts the United States central bank's rules of how high or low or what the dollar is worth. If Russia goes back to that, they are just signing the death sentence of their economy. Now, ending with the Russian economy, I love that, but we're getting to even more exciting parts, the Russian army communications. So ever since Starlink was switched off, things have been extremely chaotic, and it's quite of a tedious topic in a way that you don't get these flashy videos of explosions or battles because there's no internet. You don't get the videos anymore. That's the issue. You get a load of text. Quite boring, right? But this is one of the most deadly blows to Russia in the last few years. They lost communications, fast comms to their entire army in one day. And they are replacing it really fast with United States companies Ubiquity, that's the name of the company, Wi-Fi relays. And it's really bad because, you know, why is US companies sending and selling these devices to Russia? Let's watch the video from the front. I will read it to you.
Starlink.
Work piled up. Starlink got blocked along the front line. We're installing bridges, network radio transmitters. So this is a Wi-Fi bridge or a radio bridge or a radio relay, connection relay, whatever you want to call it. It just lengthens whatever you send out, information you send out, the frequencies. And it is Ubiquity Tech, United States company. So the Russians use Starlink, one US company. When this was taken away from them, they're using another US company's assets. The point is, Russians don't have an alternative to United States tech, which allows them to communicate very effectively. If that weren't the case, Ukrainians would advance very fast. Just mentioning it here that US companies allow Russia to wage this war. But that won't break us. Victory will be ours, you're right, but I'm just showing how they are replacing it. It's not as good, it's still a lot of work, but it's not total pitch black darkness anymore. Another video from the front of a Russian soldier being really mad about losing Starlink. The effing Americans turned off the internet. Imagine you're a Russian soldier, you're occupying another country's land, committing war crimes, and you're like, those effing Americans, not allowing us to do war crimes. So bad. What a weird thing to be mad about. Now there's trouble with the internet. Almost the entire front is without internet. We only have our military wireless broadband left, and it's not effing working at all. Yeah, Russians do have their domestic military wireless broadband, their own connections. They don't work. They're really bad. They're like from the 1990s max, and they're 30 years behind. They're very slow. Yeah. According to the latest news, I was given shitty equipment. We stole the TV from another equipment site. Already, you know, it's a Russian video. They're trying to fix this issue. It's like, yeah, lucky for us, we stole the TV from another company or crew or squad, whatever. They stole that tech from their own guys. So bad. And we're setting all this up. At first it didn't look like it does. Now inside the case it looked much worse. We're turning shites into candy again. My head is exploding. Tomorrow there's another meeting with someone from another unit, set up, hacking and total effing chaos. Basically, F this. We get tons of these videos from the Russian front now saying that they need to work so hard now to manage any kind of comms, effective communications. See what power the United States has. They have many companies who have alternatives to Starlink. Ubiquity and tens of companies who produce tech that Russians could use. That continues their occupation of Ukraine. So yeah, it's about US political decisions when to stop this. Ubiquity right now exports billions worth of tech to the Russian front, and it's a political decision when to stop this. Just putting this out there, nothing else. But Russians did it really to themselves. Yeah, Starlink was cut off, but it was not Elon Musk or Americans who cut off Telegram, who cut off Discord. That was the Russian, that was the Kremlin. Check it out. A few months ago, Russians had their commanders sitting in the rear watching drone feeds in real time, with commanders from many battalions across multiple brigades and maybe even divisions all in one room together collaborating, planning Iskander strikes, airstrikes, etc. Now, Discord is banned, so sharing the videos is really hard. Yes, you might be like, what the hell Discord? Russian army used Discord on mass scale. It was really effective for them. Now Starlink is gone, so having internet near the front is difficult or impossible. Now Telegram is gone, so side chats, relationships, archived communications, all are gone. Russian kill chain will go from 1 to 2 minutes to 20 minutes or 100 plus minutes. Yeah, it's a matter of if you hit the enemy or not. If you get them in 1 to 2 minutes, you will hit them in 20 minutes. They will be gone from that position. In 100 minutes, you're chasing dust. So yeah, this means less Ukrainian casualties and more ammunition wasted for the Russians, because they will hit locations where Ukrainians were 1 hour ago. And you might think, okay, what is the Russian solution? Well, Kremlin banned Discord and Telegram and WhatsApp and all these communication channels because they have their own that they are now forcing the army to use. It's called Max. And it's a state-run messenger app. They're forcing now everybody, every unit, to go switch to the Max app. And also they're forcing the citizens to do that. Why? Because Max is monitored by FSB. Every chat, Everything in Max can be opened by the FSB. That's why the Kremlin wants everybody to use that instead of every alternative, basically. What is the issue with the Max is that it is shit. It doesn't work. It crashes all the time, many times a day. Imagine you are seeing a Ukrainian crew of whatever, artillery or Patriot, for example, on the screen, a drone operator sending you a screenshot, sending you the coordinates. You now in the rear see these coordinates like, oh, it's a Patriot, come on, relay these to the artillery crews. As soon as you copy the coordinates and send them over, it crashes. And the Patriot is moved in the next 5 minutes and you will hit an empty location. This is what it means to use Max. It doesn't work. It crashes at the most vital time because in the front every minute is vital. So yeah, it's just, they have a shitty not working app to replace everything else, and it's horrible. It means Ukrainian life saved, Russian ammo wasted. Perfect. Now let's talk about the Ukrainian counteroffensive. It's wonderful to see that actually, because Ukrainians have liberated in Zaporizhia about 90 to 100 square kilometers. It's quite a big of an area. I gotta say a disclaimer here. Everybody loves these maps of just counting these square kilometers. You know, is it a Russian advance or Ukrainian counteroffensive? Put this yellow on a map, as you can see. Oh, liberated area. Let me be frank here. Due to the massive developments of drones and in the last 4 years, the front line and any kind of maps you see, it's a symbolic map. Every line here is symbolic because the gray zone is 20 kilometers, which means you cannot have permanent forward positions in the gray zone because you will get killed by drones if you're there for a longer period of time. Gray zone. The gray zone on this map is tiny, a few clicks, actually it's 20 clicks. So if you see this kind of advancements by the Ukrainians, the reality is they actually pushed their troops into the gray zone and pushed the gray zone back for the Russians. So it's not directly penetrating through Russian lines or taking any kind of area where Russians have permanent presence. What is really happening more is pushing into the area where Russians have infiltrated troops, some small pockets of them, banging them out of there, and setting up your own infiltration pockets. This is what it is. Penetrations through Russian lines, this would mean that Ukrainians would have to move in 15 to 20 kilometers. This hasn't happened. So yeah, it's all good news, but just, I gotta give you the real sense here. The gray zone is so massive, if you don't see a 20-click movement through the enemy lines, you cannot claim any kind of broken lines or massive counteroffensive. What you can claim is making your tactical position better. Grabbing some local, better defendable points and setting up your position there. That's it. It's not a push to destroy the enemy lines. But it is, look at that. Yeah, these kind of maps, they do look beautiful. I like them, like to see them. 90 square kilometers liberated, 5 villages liberated from the Russians. But again, yeah, these maps of red and blue always, they get you so hyped up that, some land taken or given away. But yeah, the reality is that the front line now is so liquid. Infiltration pockets are moving so fast and so often that drawing any kind of line in this 20-kilometer gray zone is very difficult, and it will always be false. So just keep that in mind. I'll read your post also. 90% of the counteroffensive maps you're seeing are mappers correcting overmarking of Russian advances. The captured villages were never truly controlled by Russia. It was small forward units in contested areas. These are largely just fluctuations in the contested zones. Yeah, always just keep that in mind if you want to be connected to reality. If not, you can always look. There's many military bloggers who make these big map changes and draw these lines on the map and show you which village or which 100 meters was taken this or that day. It doesn't matter, really. Doesn't really matter at all. Fighting happens mostly, pushes happen back and forth in the gray zone, and this is Ukrainians just grabbing the opportunity that Russians are in the dark for losing Starlink and grabbing the best defendable positions in Zaporizhia Oblast. And it looks nice on the maps. But don't take it for reality. But the Russian Ministry of Defense, they also publish, maps and information of which villages were taken or lost. And the Russian Ministry of Defense yesterday pushed out information to all of the Russian newspapers. that 30% of Mirnohrad's city's territory is under the Russian armed forces. Why is it weird? Well, because in December they pushed out information officially, said by Belousov, the Minister of Defense of Russia, that all of Mirnohrad is under Russian armed forces. And now, almost 2 months later, 30% of Mirnohrad. Well, let me show you. Mirnohrad is under full Russian control right now. They published in December that full Mirnohrad is taken, and now that 30% of Mirnohrad is taken. Just illustrated how they have also no connection to reality. They're just pushing out information to make it look like to the internal reader, the Russian reader, that they are taking some villages or some towns or some areas. That has no connection to reality. The reality is Russia took Mirnohrad in December, and they announced it, and now they announced that they took 30% of Mirnohrad. It's just fail of communications. But if it's on the Ministry of Defense level, that just shows you how chaotic things are in the Russian Ministry of Defense. Just an illustration again. It's so stupid. And Russian military bloggers are really mad about this, because they know the truth mostly, because they have direct connections to the soldiers on the front, and then they read Ministry of Defense's posts, and there are such contradictions there. So they're really mad. Really mad. Russian state media are scrubbing reports on capturing southern Mirnohrad, despite Defense Ministry declaring the whole city taken in December. Yeah, the information now was sent out to the newspapers that 30% is taken. Then a few hours later, the Ministry of Defense sent out an order to all of the newspapers that they should redact the previous posts. It's just a chaos in the Russian Ministry of Defense, as it always has been. In addition to all of that, the Ministry of Defense claimed to capture some villages. Let me show you these villages on a map. They claimed yesterday to have captured Primorske, Magdalinivka and Zaporizhia. These villages are 2 to 3 clicks from the Russian lines and from the grey zone, firmly under the armed forces of Ukrainian control. It's just a fake claim, as they do all the time. They did it with Kupiansk, and Kupiansk is under the control of armed forces of Ukraine right now. Fully. And Russians claim they took Kupiansk in November 25. So yeah, another false claim that policymakers in Kremlin will take into account. Oh, they took these villages. Take the next ones. That's a political order. And then the commanders on the front right here, who know they haven't taken these villages, get an order to take the next ones. So they gotta attack. And this is why we see these massive columns running into minefields and drones. That's how it is. This is it, my friends, from Monday edition. Do you know how I was able to publish this book? You know, publishing books, quite expensive actually. Didn't know that. You gotta do a lot of stuff that you don't know how to do. How to edit, redact, do the cover photo, everything, all of that. It all costs money. I was able to do that thanks to Buy Me a Coffee monthly members. So I never said that, but they're partially behind this book actually. So I gotta give them credit by butchering their names. And I have 4 new names for you to listen with your ears bleeding. Check it out. Richard A. Libey. Thank you. Leo News Emmet Yigathi. Oh, this is a butchered one. Leo News Emmet Yigathi. Thank you very much. Colin Sutherland. Thank you, appreciate you. Ricardo Escobedo. Yes. Thank you to these 4 new members. Thank you for making it possible for me to publish the book. Also, if you haven't read it, please go and do. Link is in the description below. It will be in your doorstep, on your doorstep in 5 working days in America and all across the world. And until my next video, my friends, which will be Monday, Wednesday and Friday, subscribe to the channel. Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.